what could either of those, either receiver or control board, do? What do you think they ought to do that is not being done at the moment?
Well, I look at, I mean, I watched pretty up close and personal the receiver play out in Chelsea, okay? I was at Harvard Pilgrim when they put the control board in Springfield, so I know a little less about what was going on there, although I've talked to people about it. And I think the three big differences you get with a receiver or a control board is, number one, you get a professional manager who serves for all intents and purposes as both the legislator and the executive of the city government. So your city government at a managerial level is speaking with one voice, okay? And I can tell you that in the case of Chelsea, this made an enormous difference. You know, being able to have the city speak with one voice to businesses, to labor, to local citizens, to everybody, and it created a sense of security and stability and consistency that didn't exist when you had a mayor and a city council and a school committee sort of off saying whatever their own thing was. Second thing it did is it created out of that a planning model and a planning mechanism. You could literally get a lot more aggressive about what you were doing with regard to performance standards, measuring, monitoring, and all the rest, because you had a single voice through which the state or the city was being managed and administered. And the third thing it does is it takes politics, because it's usually an outside person completely out of the mix, which then makes it possible, as it was true in Springfield and as it was true in Chelsea previously, to engage in a real back and forth across the table about changes that needed to be made in work rules and collective bargaining and what was a reasonable performance standard and all the rest. And the other thing it did was it created a real sense of stability for local businesses. One of the things you worry about when a community gets into really serious financial trouble is, what does it mean for the businesses that are already there? You know, are they going to stay? Are they going to leave? Certainly they're not going to put one more dime on the table or make an investment until they know something about what the future is going to look like. And in a situation like this one, the mere fact that the mayor, shortly after he was elected, said he wanted to stay as mayor and as state rep, said to me that he didn't understand that this was a 24/7, 365 job, given the circumstances and the situation as it currently existed in Lawrence. And that all by itself would have been more than enough to tell me that he didn't understand the size of the problem or the nature of what was going to be required to solve it and deal with it. And I think that's played out over the course of the past 5 or 6 months here. I still think you need something more aggressive and more significant than what we have there to deal with the current problems that Lawrence faces.
Do you have any specific examples of ways that the city needs to cut spending or?
Well, I can tell you that in the case of Chelsea and Springfield, they made major improvements in a very short period of time in their balance sheet, their tax collection, their spend rate, their run rate month over month. Some of that was through collective bargaining adjustments, some of it was through changes in work rules, some of it was just based on what was left on the table that administratively could have been pursued and wasn't pursued. In the case of Springfield, they also joined the GIC, which saved them $8 million. In the case of Chelsea, they actually had a single voice to speak through Jim Carlin's office with respect to some business development opportunities that they had. It totally changed the nature of the relationship between the school committee and the city council around developing the school budget. Springfield and Chelsea had almost no metrics in place for measuring performance department by department before the receiver got there or the control board got there. They had them within a very short period of time, and people were held accountable to them, which made a big difference. And in less than a year, without the kind of turmoil you see going on in Lawrence right now, you had a huge improvement in the fiscal position of both communities.
So you're following the turmoil in Lawrence?
Yeah, and it worries me. I mean, I was in Lawrence Friday? Yeah. We were in Lawrence last Friday. We were in Methuen today. I talked to a bunch of people coming up. I talk to people once I get here. And there's not just concern in Lawrence. I mean, the concern in Lawrence is what does this all mean? You know, the public safety stuff, the security stuff, the lack of kind of a plan for the city at this point in time. And, you know, I had several people say to me point blank, they're worried about some of the gang activity and some of the drug activity. starting to drift into some of the other communities. Some of the people who came to our event in Methuen today said they were worried about some of the activity they see starting to happen on the Lawrence-Methuen border. I've talked to a number of the police chiefs, some of the neighboring communities, when the whole issue about fire protection came up and what that was going to mean with regard to them. Are they going to be expected to sort of redouble their efforts to deal with issues associated with Lawrence's inability to adequately manage the public safety issues on its streets? I think those are exactly the kind of things that are hard to manage in an environment where there are many, many chiefs.